Hey, everybody. So we're back with part 2. Nick is actually in transit at the moment. So I am here with our guest, Gillian.
Hey, Alex.
Without Nick, I always love a great opportunity to just remove Nick from the equation. And this was perfect. So thank you for hopping back on quickly to dig into him
no problem.
bit.
Well, it seems like Nick removed himself. What did this clown do? Why are we here? This is his fault, right?
So Nick is coming out to California because his wife is in grad school in San Diego. So
yes. Hi, Sarah.
He's been pushing off the trip over and over again. I've done this with Sarah too, actually. We went down and visited her and had a nice little chat that Nick had no control over.
Fantastic.
So he's traveling, and I guess somehow, I don't know how you lose your laptop at JFK. Like, maybe he left it on the conveyor belt, or I don't know. I don't understand how it's actually humanly possible to lose your computer at the airport.
It's funny because, and this was completely unplanned, listeners. Like, I knew about that I was recording with Alex not 5 minutes ago, but Patrick Hines has done that after we've come back from live shows or like conventions or whatever. There was one time, I think it was JFK, he left his laptop on the plane. It was like in the little in the seat compartment in front of you thing. And you're just like, we were so exhausted and just ready to get home. So on the way home, I understand it more.
Maybe that makes sense.
Because I feel like if you're going
he might
there,
have had a layover. Because Nick's a cheap bastard, so he probably bought like a 4-stop ticket for like $80.
I feel like by the time you're on your way home, you're so sick and tired of doing like the keys, wallet, phone dance, like keys, wallet, phone, iPad. Like I can see, but of course, leave it to Nick on the way there. Also, that's just a nightmare. All jokes aside, a
nightmare. No, he's not having a great time based on the short conversation that I had with him. So before we dive into part 2, we've already gone through Nick's choice of Catch Me If You Can, which is a great film, and we're moving on towards our choices now. Is there any Nick trivia that you have that you wouldn't want anybody to know, or he wouldn't want anybody to know, but we want everybody to know?
Oh my God.
There's gotta be something.
There's gotta be, right? He told me a story about how he almost missed his cue in Hamilton because he was eating cereal in his dressing room. But he said that on the podcast, so he told everybody. But I was like, Nick, Tommy Kail listens to this, right? Like cereal is almost what delayed the show. Cereal.
Nick's bachelor party I planned. We rented a house in upstate New York. The only request that he had was cereal. So we went up, we rented a whole passenger van with like 15 people and went to this weird house in the middle of nowhere. And we had probably 15 or 16 boxes of cereal. And we bought a bunch of Nerf guns and just hung out in this like weird forest mansion all weekend. And it was actually pretty amazing.
The last time Nick was on the podcast, Nick and Sarah were on the podcast, and he was talking about cereal, and the look on her face, I was just like, Sarah, she was like, it's messy. It's like there's just like cereal crumbs everywhere. Like this cereal thing is kind of it haunts him in some way, but it's his like major vice is cereal.
Yeah, it's because he refuses to grow up.
That's it. That's exactly right.
So with that being said, onward to part 2. Little justice, little justice, little justice. So I guess I'll just line it up because I've already started. I don't know if you guys are going to get this or not. So I wanted to pick something because we've got, a true crime expert in here, and we've got Steven Spielberg Walker here. So I figured I wanted to find something a little more obscure, a little more that's like a really great movie that tells the story really well, that maybe a lot of people haven't seen, and they should. So this film starts on 50s old newsreel footage. And it is a tourism video for Christchurch, New Zealand. Beautiful streets, people riding bikes. It's all very positive, and it goes on for a while. It's just a couple straight minutes. The schools are great, and here they are going to church, and here's Sally doing this, and everybody's happy and all that. And then all of a sudden, in the span of like 10 seconds, the music just gets really moldy and dark and all that, and you cut to a forest. The screen widens up, and there's 2 girls running through the forest just screaming their heads off. and they're rushing along this hiking path.
Wait.
And they rush up a hill.
Wait.
Screaming. They break out to the top at this house, and this lady comes running out like, what's wrong?
Alex,
and the camera cuts, and they're just staring into the camera, screaming, covered in blood.
Is this movie
about how somebody's died?
Is this directed by Peter Jackson?
It is.
Yes!
And the movie is
Heavenly Creatures.
Oh, I wish James Mason would do a religious picture. He'd be perfect as Jesus.
Daddy says the Bible's a load of bunkum.
But we're all going to heaven.
I'm not. I'm going to the fourth world. It's an absolute paradise of music, art, and pure enjoyment. James will be there, and Mario. Only they'll be saints. Saint Mario.
I was afraid this was going to happen. I haven't seen it.
No, it's fine. That's fine.
I was afraid of this.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's exactly
all good. I mean, I'm glad that I picked something so out there.
Yeah.
You really should see this movie.
It sounds like I'm going to watch it through my hands. It sounds terrifying.
No. It's not. So it's actually the movie is about two girls, Juliet Hume and Pauline Parker, who are real people who form a friendship. Right. One of them's kind of this social outcast girl. She's always angry and never talking to people. And this girl from England moves into town, and they become fast friends to the point where you're not really sure what the relationship even is. It's based on a real crime where they formed such a bond that when the parents decided to split them apart and they wanted to take this girl back across overseas, they came up with a plan to kill the one's mother, and they did it. Fast forward for, after this story takes place, they kill the mother, they go to jail for 5 years. When she gets out, when Juliet Hume gets out, she takes another name, Anne Perry, and moves away and becomes like a world famous true crime author. It's not in the movie that happens, but in reality, the person that this is based on wrote like best-selling novels for her entire career.
Oh, shit.
After only serving, crazy. But so the movie is Peter Jackson, who did Lord of the Rings, right? It's the only movie he did in between his early like monster creature features, Dead Alive or Brain Dead and Bad Taste, which are like puppet blood, crazy cartoony horror, almost horror comedies with how crazy they are. And he did The Frighteners too. But this was like his one serious movie, and it got nominated for Best Original Screenplay. And I think it's what gave the studio confidence that he could go off and do Lord of the Rings. It's also the feature film debut of Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky, who played the two girls. It's phenomenal. So the story, why I love it as a true crime story is because from the beginning, if you're watching it, there's a little card that prompts it. Like you know what happens at the end, so you're waiting for it. It doesn't get to the point where they decide to do it until the very end. Like, it's not like halfway through the movie, the one's like, we should kill them, and they plot it out. And it's not like a murder story. It's about these two girls who really don't fit in anywhere, really finding this bond with each other, really only understanding each other. And the movie uses fantasy sequences and things. They like decide to write a fantasy book together, and they live in this world that they've developed, and their reality starts blending with it. So the character, the parents and the teachers and everybody they're interacting with, they start to kind of cast them into this fantasy story they're telling. Kind of got like a Labyrinth vibe almost. And it's a fascinating way to kind of portray the inner turmoil of teenage girls.
Charles!
Gina! It's great to see you here.
Yellow.
Careful, Gina, we almost lost you. For you, my lady.
And everything starts working against them. And it's the parents who initially, all the parents are good people in the beginning. You all start to, oh, well, one's cheating and one's angry and one's doing this and one's doing that. And they get so, the rest of the world stops making sense to them. So they only have each other. They cling tighter to each other. And so when they're finally torn apart at the end, it's like this tightly wound bomb.
It's a 3-act story with a tragedy in it.
Your mother is rather a miserable woman.
isn't she? I thought for hours about whether Carmelita should accept Bernard's marriage proposal.
I think she knows what's going to happen. She doesn't appear to bear us any grudge.
But in the end, I decided against it. I thought it would spoil all their fun.
And it brings you to understand how they could kill somebody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because it's threatening the only thing that's that's making the world make any kind of sense. Because they feel like if they didn't do it, then they would die.
Yeah, Alex, talk a little bit about the world. Tell Gillian a little bit more about the world that they create with each other. Because like that, I think the fantastical element of this.
It's
movie.
amazing. So Weta Workshop was created for this film. And I think it's fascinating because it's not... It's a drama, right? It's a character drama. It's not a fantasy movie. It's not a horror movie. It's not, you wouldn't think that the leading special effects studio in the world would have started with a story about, teenage lesbians.
Right.
They've created, they start writing about this world. It's called Barovnia. It's like a fantasy kingdom, with kings and princes and swords and all these things. And then, in addition, they start making these little clay characters. And so what they do is they built an entire set and costumes with people who look like human-sized clay characters.
It's insane.
And they just have these girls. It's crazy. It's like not, it's beyond, it's not real looking, but it's just like they look like just giant, poorly molded clay figurines, but they really look like that. Like the costumes are so well done,
and it's almost. I mean, it kind of borders this line that I think, and it makes me think of another Peter Jackson film that I don't know if everyone's, or maybe you guys did either of you see The Lovely Bones?
No, I actually never did.
So Lovely Bones is pretty much like kind of the same, a lot of the same concepts, right? Like you take this, obviously the murder in The Lovely Bones isn't real, but you take a murder and you make it into you bring in like elements of magical realism and you just make it a very interesting, crazy world. Stanley Tucci was nominated for Best Supporting as the killer in that movie, and he's terrifying. But like it really is these things where it blends kind of what I think Peter Jackson is best at, which is like taking elements that it at turns, like right instantaneously, can go from heartwarming and like beautiful to like slightly disturbing, and that's what when you watching these young women dance in this clay castle like thing, I mean, I just remember being like, what the hell? Like it's very strange, and like the smiles are just plastered on these guys.
It's very creepy.
It's creepy.
It's very creepy, and they start to cast the characters against it, right? And they start to see, one of the girls goes to see a psychologist because her mother is worried that she's gay. So she sends her to have this conversation with a psychologist about how it's just a phase or whatever. And by the end of the thing, she's fantasizing about a clay guy coming up and stabbing him through the back, and they go through the whole sequence, and then it cuts, and none of that actually happened.
Perhaps you could think about spending more time with boys. You don't want to hurt Juliet's feelings, but I'm sure she'd understand you're having other interests outside of the friendship. I mean, there's all sorts of clubs and hobbies that you can... Bloody fool. Mrs. Reaper...
And suddenly you understand why they can commit murder.
Suddenly you understand,
Like,
and I mean, I guess it's something that's been beaten to death in other things, but like the way it's used is very poignant, visual language, where you follow these girls, in a positive way through their fantasy land, and you get their connection to it, and it connects each other, right? They start writing, when they get separated, they start writing each other letters in the voices of these characters they've created. Like they really use this world to be their language. So when they bring it into their own situations, you understand what it means to them and how it relates. It's like, without needing to, like, if you're trying to explain how do you get somebody to murder, how do you push somebody to murder, especially a 15, 16-year-old girl, it tackles it in such a unique and poignant way.
I'm riveted by this. I'm
Yeah,
riveted.
Please go watch the movie because it really is a beautiful
Heavenly
film.
Creatures.
Heavenly Creatures.
It's phenomenal. And Peter Jackson. I mean, I won't say it's my favorite Peter Jackson because Lord of the Rings, but second favorite.
I was picked up at 2 p.m. I have been very sweet and good. I have worked out a little more of our plan. Peculiarly enough, I have no qualms of conscience. I rose late and helped Mother vigorously this morning. Deborah rang and we decided to use a rock and a stocking rather than a sandbag. We discussed the moida fully. I feel very keyed up as though I were planning a surprise party. Mother has fallen in with everything beautifully, and the happy event is to take place tomorrow afternoon. Next time I write in this diary, Mother will be dead.
Yeah, I know this is going to be controversial. I might throw King Kong in there, and I know that you're going to kill me for that.
King Kong. No. No.
Yeah.
I love it. I love King Kong.
Good film. Good film.
I have nothing bad to say about King Kong. I have nothing phenomenal to say about King Kong.
I know.
Nick, did I ever
it comes
tell
from a
you?
good place.
Nick, did I ever tell you my Peter Jackson story of when I met him?
You're going to tell me now.
Okay, and Alex, for you too. I'm gonna take. This is gonna be quick, but of course it relates to true crime
Take your
because
time.
like this is just who I am. So a dear friend of mine and of Mike's is Damien Eccles, and Damien Eccles is a person who was wrongfully imprisoned and on death row. So he was in prison for 18 years and I think 75 days, and 10 of those years was solitary. And it's a case. It's called the West Memphis 3. That's his case. And Peter Jackson. There were a Paradise Lost series Joe Berlinger did. That was the HBO documentary, and then West of Memphis came out. But there was a lot of celebrity attention on this case because of the HBO series. And Peter Jackson was one of the people who came forward and helped bankroll the investigations and helped get them out of prison. So Damien, Jesse, and Jason had to sign an Alford plea, which means that they maintain their innocence but quote plead guilty just so they can get out because Damien was dying in prison. So they're out. But and that Peter Jackson, it costs a lot of money to do the investigation, especially when the state of Arkansas wants to kill you and they don't want to admit any wrongdoing. So Peter Jackson, it was like Peter Jackson, Johnny Depp, Henry Rollins, the Dixie Chicks, the Chicks, Natalie Maines, especially. Natalie Maines is such a badass hero, but she was very, very vocal. And so we went to one of Damien's art shows in LA, and because Lori, his wife Lori, and Damien got very, very close with Fran and Pete, as they call them, which is so bizarre. We'll be at dinner and Lori's like, "Oh, Fran and Pete," and I'm like, "You mean like Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson, like that Fran and Pete?" Cool. Because they're just like friends. And so he was there. And so Mike is such a fan of Lord of the Rings. And so we met him, and Lori was like, here, Lori's the sweetest person in the world. And she was like, here are the sweet friends we've told you about, Mike and Gillian. And we just said to him, like, we didn't talk about his movies at all. We just said, like, thank you for saving our friend's life and doing what you could to like get him out. And so Peter Jackson was like really lovely and like came to Damien's art show. It was in LA at the time. And he was just he's a cool guy, and he threw his money at something very meaningful. And so I always like telling that story, not because it's not like any street cred for me, or a humble brag for me. It's cool that I met Peter Jackson, but it's even cooler that he threw his money at the cause of getting 3 innocent men out of prison.
Oh, that's what we want to hear. That's what we like. I like those stories where people are good people. I really do think that's a great
That's the
thing.
goal. I want to have as much money to get all the thousands of innocent people in prison. I want them out. Can
we please do that?
Can we yeah. I want to save all the animals and get all the innocent people out of prison. That's my whole thing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick advertisement break to pay for things. But when we come back, we will have some money movie choices for you. We will be right back. And we are back. And in the meantime, I want to hear about your movie, which, Alex, I have to admit, I do believe I know. So I'm not going to.
You sound very sure about it. So you know exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my film it opens on July 4th. and it's a tracking shot, and it's from we're looking out the passenger side of a car, and it's like going through a neighborhood, and we're going house by house by house by house, and finally we stop on a house. Does someone have a guess? What am I hearing?
I didn't choose this. I would have chosen it, and it's another, like, literally you guys chose the two that I was gonna choose until I realized, nah, there's too good a chance.
It is my favorite movie other than That Thing You Do and Clue. It actually has to do with what True Crime Obsessed was originally going to be. Can I say it?
Go for it.
Yes, please.
Zodiac.
Dear editor, this is the murderer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July near the golf course in Vallejo. To prove I killed them, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas, brand name of ammo, Super X. 10 shots were fired. The boy was on his back with his feet to the car. The girl...
Here is part of a cipher. The other 2 parts of this cipher are being mailed to the editors of the Vallejo Times and SF Examiner. I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Fry, F-R-Y, 1st of Aug 69, I will go on a kill rampage Fry night. I will cruise around all weekend, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. It's unsigned except for a symbol.
Is it me? Or does that look like a gun sight?
Yeah.
Boom. I love this movie so hard.
It is okay. Can I just talk about it for a second?
Go off. It's time.
Please.
The time is now.
So I read Helter Skelter like way too young, and Charles Manson and that whole story is what got me into true crime, reading Helter Skelter. And then the next book I read was Robert Graysmith's book. And like, I'm talking notes in the margin. I was going to get the guy. Like from a young age, I've always wanted to get the guy. So when Zodiac came out, and it's like Mark Ruffalo, who I'm obsessed with, Chloe Sevigny, who's incredible, and no one gives her any credit for that comedic performance in Big Love. She was phenomenal in that show. We have Robert Downey Jr. We have Jake Gyllenhaal. It's the best. But I saw that movie at midnight when like no one was in the theater. I went to like the 12:01 showing of Zodiac, and it was so, because I'm a purist, right? And this is what we do on True Crime Obsessed. Like, if we're gonna be laughing at shit revolving this story, I'm going to get every name right. I'm going to get every date right. I want to do everyone as much justice as I possibly can as a dumb podcaster. So if we're going to be laughing about the lawyer, I'm going to get the victim's name right. I'm going to get her sister's name right. You know what? That's very, very important to me, to not be like, yeah, I think her name was Kathy or whatever. Like, no, I'm going to know her fucking middle name. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to make sure we know that. So I remember being in the theater and thinking, I've seen this before. That's how accurate some of the scenes in Zodiac were compared to the book, because it felt like, wait, I was having deja vu, and I realized, no, it's just Fincher being Fincher. That's it. It's just like dark and 70s and wonderful. And so I think it's really about not just trying to figure out who this guy is. It's what the obsession with true crime and the obsession with this case did to the people reporting it and the people who were affected by it, who were not the victims. And it sounds cruel to say, because I think they did the victims justice in Zodiac, which I think is very, very important. But it's how, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, like Paul Avery, he became obsessed with the case. Robert Graysmith, Dave Toschi, like every year when Dave Toschi, the anniversary of the Paul Stein murder on Washington and Cherry, like up until his death, every year on that date, the real Toschi would go to that corner and just sit there and try to like get something new, feel something new, like anything to help the case. This consumed people, and it is. I think it's 2.5 hours, and my only complaint is that it's too short.
Somebody else is here.
It is a public park.
I think he's watching us.
Well, we're very good looking.
We're behind that tree.
All right, so he's taking a leak.
He's coming towards us. Oh my God, he has a gun.
Don't move.
Can I ask you this? Can you speak a little bit about the depiction of the murders of Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard? Because that scene, that sequence, I can't.
Is
I
it
actually
the one
can't.
out by the lake?
Yes,
It's Lake
I can't.
Berryessa.
I can never watch. Talk to me about that.
Well, I will as much as I can. It's what I skip every time.
Yep.
And
yep.
I skip it every time. And Mike knows it's coming, and he gets the remote. He knows I'm very I'm very sensitive to that. But so what happens is, and this was one of the things, one of the scenes that made me feel like I've seen this before. Nope, it's just Fincher perfectly recreating one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened. So this couple is out at Lake Berryessa. It's the middle of the day. There are no real trees. They're like yards away from any kind of tree or brush area. They are out in the open. It's the middle of the day. It's everyone on earth is like, oh, they're safe. It's 2 p.m. Like there's no way any harm can come to them. Because that's what we think, right? It's the middle of the day. I'm outside. There's like nowhere to hide here. It's totally fine. And this person approaches them wearing this horrifying outfit, this mask and all this stuff. And he brutally murders them. First, he lies to them and says, I just want money or whatever. And the boyfriend tries really hard to calm down his girlfriend. And the way Fincher films it is so moving and so effective because the terror, and that actress is absolutely
phenomenal,
unbelievable. The absolute terror in her eyes, and it's a brutal stabbing. So I can't watch it. It's too much. It's too real. It's too scary. It's too sad. Like, fuck this guy. Fuck the Zodiac. Like, he sucks. And you see it from the boyfriend's point of view. And she's crying, and then like he goes back and he stabs the boyfriend and he stabs her, and it's just like it is everyone. It is such a fear that's realized because again, it's the middle of the day. No, everyone thinks you're safe when all the lights are on, and you're not. And the 70s were the worst. Like we just did I'll Be Gone in the Dark on True Crime Obsessed. Like, and we came out of doing that series, and the big takeaway was fuck the 70s. Like nobody cared about women. Like rape was an afterthought, and the 70s were just like a nightmare. So that is the scene that I skip, but it's a very important murder in the case. So I understand why Fincher took all that time to show us that.
No, it truly is it's a moment where number one, because of the attention to detail of this movie, you know that it's just a scene that just brings home the gravity of exactly what this person was doing. And not only that, but you talk about respect to the victims. I mean, it really, it actually is not, it's not gory. It's not that's kind of why it's so effective. Is it's not about the amount of blood it's just about watching these two poor kids have to watch each other get stabbed. And it's just like unfucking believably uncomfortable.
And the thing is, like Ruffalo, like Dave Toschi, who was another just brilliant mind. He was the main inspector on the case. They called him inspector back then. But he says, he was Zodiac was too busy killing the women that he forgets to finish off the men. So we have like eyewitness statements, of course, traumatized, injured, near death. But 2 of the boys lived, and so they can tell these stories, and it's just like it really hits home as a woman too, because she's the one in that scene, she's the one who notices there's some guy like lurking around the trees. And the boyfriend, and I'm not victim blaming at all, but this is just life, and the boyfriend's like, it's fine, again, it's 2 p.m, don't worry about it. But as a woman, like I say this on True Crime Obsessed all the time, and Patrick is always like, oh my God, to be a woman in this world is a nightmare. And I'm like, it sure is. But like, you always know the guy in the room or the guys in the bar to have your eye on, always. Like the ladies listening at home, they know exactly what I'm saying. It's always like, all right, I don't like that guy, so I'm gonna know where he is all the time, and I'm probably not gonna use the bathroom until he's far enough away from it where I feel safe that I can walk there without being, whatever. And so that felt very real too, that she was the one that was like, she felt it, she knew, because that's what it's like to be a woman in the world.
That's fucking awful. And I mean, all I can say is, fuck that, and I'm sorry that's a real. No, and it's the truth, because even with Sarah, we there's so much that I have realized that even as a black man, I'm still a man, and have not had to deal with, and the idea that you are in these spaces and cannot feel safe or have to have an awareness about you, cannot ever let your guard down. And I think that speaks to so much of what the movie is talking about too, was this time when we didn't understand. I mean, that, you know, I think the beauty of having true crime be a genre or a podcast genre or just a genre that people are interested in now, the silver lining of this is that people are more aware of what can happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I think that's kind of what made the Zodiac and other crimes of that era so astounding, was that, you know, I mean, that's the entirety of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is like the destruction of innocence, right? The idea that this world is safe and happy and free and everybody's here to help you. Like, that's finding out that nope, there's people who are just really fucked up. Yeah.
And they're like really amazing just cinematic choices and things that Fincher does, like every time, because we see the Zodiac a few times in this and he's played by a different actor every time. So it's not like the guy who plays Arthur Lee Allen is playing the role of the murderer at Lake Berryessa, Darlene Ferrin, Ione Skye. Like, he's not, it's not the same actor, because we never see his face. We just hear his voice. And because there were so many different composites, and again, these people were dealing with trauma after encountering this person, or, you know, that great scene, that infuriating scene with Mark Ruffalo talking to the kids on the stairs after the Paul Stein murder. And they're like, he looked normal. And he's like, what, normal? Like, and of course they said it was a black guy first. And so there were two cops who actually walked by him. Like, that's all true. Like, they walked by the Zodiac killer who killed Paul Stein. Like, if we didn't blame the black guy right away, we could have saved so many lives. You know what I mean? Like the call went out that it was like an African-American guy. And so these cops see this piece of shit, like, lumbering along, and they kind of did a double take. And instead of questioning him, they just let him go, because over the radio, the description was something else. It was corrected quickly, but not fast enough. In the 70s, how fast can that go?
Oh my God.
You know?
I'm going to be honest. I'm sitting here in my apartment, and as we have this discussion, the way that I'm looking over my shoulder into the hallway behind me, I just want to be clear about that, because that's my life now.
Check the lock on the front door.
Abso-fucking-lutely checking that lock.
So here's how Zodiac relates to True Crime Obsessed. When Patrick and I became really good friends, and we're going to happy hour 6 days a week or whatever, and our conversations went to true crime, and I had this thing. I was like, I want to make a true crime podcast, and I don't know what it's going to be, but so I called Patrick, and it was kind of a thing. Like, I like went into our room, and I was like, Mike, I'm going to make this phone call. It was like a serious phone call. It was like a big, like, kind of pitch, but I didn't have a pitch. And so I was like, I want to make a true crime podcast. I want to do it with you. I don't know what it is. Let's get drinks and figure it out. And the first idea for the podcast was, we're going to solve the Zodiac. And it was like, I made a graphic based on the ciphers, like the code that he sent to the paper. I was like, I'm going to be like Robert Graysmith. I'm going to go to the library. Like, it was I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to fucking solve the Zodiac. We're going to get him. And then we realized a week into my research, I was like, I feel like there are more qualified people to do this. I feel like it has to be solved somehow. It kind of already is, but I feel like maybe I am just making a mockery of this case. If I was like, I think I just love the movie, and I think I'm just fascinated by the case. Like, this is really not on me. And that was like the original idea for True Crime Obsessed, was to solve the Zodiac.
I mean, listen, if there's anyone who could do it, it's absolutely you. There's no doubt in my mind that you can.
I mean, I don't think Fincher's wrong. I think I always lean towards Arthur Lee Allen. I did when I read the book, and I know Graysmith is biased in that sense, but come on.
It seemed the case is definitely made, and especially that I have to look his name up, because he always plays this exact role.
Is he the one who played Drew Carey's brother on the Drew Carey show? That guy.
Yes,
that dude's in everything, and he's excellent in everything he's in.
Yeah,
truly
he's
excellent.
He was also in Big Love with Chloe Sevigny.
Yes,
so
he was.
Yeah.
And my favorite one that he was in.
It's John something. It's another. It's like Arthur Lee
John
Allen.
Carroll Lynch.
Yes,
John Carroll Lynch, a brilliant actor. I first saw John Carroll Lynch in. This is gonna make you guys mad. Remember? Was it Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones? Is that the name of the movie?
Yes.
where he
Love Volcano.
where he plays a subway worker who is trapped underground and like is like getting people off this subway as the lava comes in, and there's this epic sequence where he jumps. So like the lava has now gone under the train, right? He has to jump to like the side of the tracks that doesn't have lava, but there's still a little girl on the train. So he picks up the little girl, and everybody's like, "Jump, you can do it." He's like, "I'm not gonna make it." They're like, "You can do it." And this man, and it's like, it actually is very heartbreaking because he jumps and he just does not make it. Like literally lands in the lava and is like melting, but uses his last ounce of consciousness and strength to like chuck this girl.
That's funny.
It was, and he's just like, and you watch him die, and you're like, God damn it, John Carroll Lynch, you're amazing. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Mike just came in
raid.
and brought the dogs.
Holy
I thought you guys
crap.
We're not on
I
camera.
love it. We're no cameras here, but it's brilliant that
If
you
anyone
just
would appreciate this, it would be Nick Walker because
No.
Prankster Nick Walker.
good old fashioned
It was-
sabotage move a little bit.
Yeah.
you did sabotage, but
I
it's a
just ran
brilliant.
up the stairs with a sheepu in my arms,
And Pete, the
Lord
mix
Pete-
of everything. Yeah.
I lured him. With
So
the
welcome,
sheep,
Seb.
and,
Well,
you guys
and-
can't even see them, but they say hi.
Well, Mike can't hear you because I have headphones on, but
But I mean, what I was going to ask was, now that he's here, I mean, because I wanted to ask really quickly for our listeners what you're up to, and part of what you're up to involves Mike, in terms of your.
I wanted to do that at the end because I still have more to say about Zodiac, but we'll pitch.
Oh,
We'll
shit.
pitch what we're working on.
Well,
Amazing.
Hi guys, I can't wait to come on. And the only other thing I can say is, there's a hurly burly man.
Oh my God! Stop it! Please stop! This is fucking terrifying. I can't do that. I can't do
This is
that.
terrifying.
I'm already, like I said, I'm staring over my shoulder like I can't deal with that right now.
Alex, thank you as a fellow editor. I apologize, and also thank you for what you're going to do.
I
with
got
that.
a hell of a
Thank you.
weekend ahead of me.
No,
yeah.
this might look. What I mean, this might need to be a two-parter, y'all, because this is we got some stuff. We got some stuff to talk about.
I have like a lot more. Here's the thing: Zodiac was like before Hamilton was like Zodiac was the thing where I was like, does anyone, and like I'd walk into a party and be like, does anyone want to talk about Zodiac at all, like the movie or the case? Like I just they'd be like, no, and I'm like, okay, well, is there a dog here for me to hang out with, or like what am I supposed to do here exactly?
Oh my God.
But there are other like little tiny things that I love that Fincher does, like just little moments where, like, even in the because like that intro that I was describing, like when they go, it's like the Darlene Ferrin murder, and after that, it's like it's like before the credits, and then they have the bump, 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 bump. They have that Santana song on, like while like they do like the on-screen text credits, and we follow. Like, I love that Fincher's like, fuck this, we have way too much to get to. This movie's gonna be 2.5 hours long. We're like immediately at the San Francisco Chronicle, which I just love. Like, he doesn't waste any time. But as we're seeing the opening credits on text, it's like the old typewriter thing, and as they fade out, they fade into the characters of the code that he wrote, which is just a cool, like, just so my speed, like, just it ticks like every box on the will Gillian love this list. And little things like how Dave Toschi used to wear, like, there's a moment where Jake Gyllenhaal as Robert Graysmith says to Nick's boyfriend Robert Downey Jr., who is basically playing like a drunk Tony Stark in the 70s, which is phenomenal. Like, that's exactly who Paul Avery was in this version of it. And because he's like in awe of Dave Toschi, and Jake Gyllenhaal goes, oh, he wears his gun like Bullet. And Robert Downey Jr. says McQueen stole that from Toschi, and that's true. Like, that's a real story. Like, Toschi wore his holster around his arm, like on the shoulder or whatever. And Steve McQueen, like, Dave Toschi was so big even before Zodiac. Like, he was like such a mainstay that Steve McQueen stole that as Bullet, which I think is like such a cool little almost throwaway line, but it's very cool.
Well, talk to me about this then. Talk to me about this, because with these three, you know, you have Dave Toschi, you have Robert Graysmith, you have Paul Avery. These three people who are coming at this thing from three distinct sides. I mean, you know, and one of the things that I think really hit me when I watched the movie was how, I'm not going to say loose their connection. It was very like LA Confidential, where these people, like, because, you know, from the way the movie was advertised, not knowing anything about the true crime of it all, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo solve a case.
Sure.
But it's not, they're very much in their own universes. Like, there's no, that's kind of the thing that I think keeps it in a true crime world. It's like, David Fincher very much resists the urge to like team them all up and bring them all together to solve the crime. It's like, nope, they kind of cross paths. Paul Avery and Robert Graysmith had this, maybe kind of friendship that you kind of like see hints of, them at the bar together.
I love that.
Oh, it's
I
great.
This can no longer be ignored.
How'd you know he was going to send another code?
I just guessed.
Just guessed?
The first one seemed too easy.
This can no longer be ignored. What is that you're drinking?
It's an Aqua Velva. We wouldn't make fun of it if you tried it.
With the Aqua Velva.
Oh, it's
that
so
is
good.
one of my favorite, and that of course became one of my favorite drinks because it is absolutely delicious and it looks cool
Is it really?
and blue.
I've never
It's
had one.
so good. It's so good. This can no longer be ignored. And Robert Graysmith with The Truth says you wouldn't make fun of it if you tried it, and then cut to drunk Robert Downey Jr. with 6 empty glasses around him. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Oh my god. No, but so I mean, but yeah, so it really is this thing, right? Where they never really kind of got on the same page. It seems like they.
No, and Paul Avery and Toschi were at odds with each other because Paul Avery was there to sell papers. Like he covered crime in Vallejo, as he says. He, was the crime writer, and so he like loved the attention and the drama of it all. And Dave Toschi was there to get the guy, and Robert Graysmith was almost, as the cartoonist of the Chronicle, really like had no place being in any of these conversations, which Fincher makes very clear early on. Like they kick him out of the editorial meetings. And so it's very interesting, like how Graysmith was an observer, really, like a spectator in all of this, and became so entrenched. And then years later, he finally gets face to face with Toschi, who's been like beaten down with this case. His own partner is like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's too much. Like it's they're just like running into these dead ends over and over and over again. And Toschi is like all beaten down, and Graysmith is like still at 100. Like Graysmith is still ready to go. And so like it's an interesting dynamic of these 3 people who have a little bit of the same goal. I think Avery really was in it for the drama, and in a little bit. I mean, not to speak ill of the dead, but I think he loved, his column was really popular at the time, and he wasn't in it, I think, in the same way Toschi and Graysmith were. And when they eventually start working together in this cool little, I can't tell you that, but maybe Ken Narlow and Napa Ken, that's a cool.
Yeah.
Those little secret meetings were always very fun. And then you have Brian Cox just being Brian Cox.
Yes, there should be a book called Being Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, who will do like Succession, which is an amazing show, and everything, Cox, and also like Super Troopers and McDonald's voiceover commercials. Like Brian Cox is just like here for all of it.
He's there for everything, and then he also plays Hannibal Lecter on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, let's go back to Manhunter, and this man shows up and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm actually the original Hannibal Lecter," and now here we are.
Right. The guy does it all.
He does it all, like kind of like you, my friend.
Well, look, are you happy that I didn't? Are you happy that I didn't choose the Hamill film because Hamilton is true crime? I could have chosen the Hamill film for this.
I mean,
very technically, you are right.
You are actually correct.
Wow.
The vice president killed the Treasury Secretary. Hamilton is true crime through and through. I will die on this hill. No pun intended.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I think that if you had chosen the Hamill film, I would have probably walked off.
I never would do that to you. I would never. And also like I would never do that to me. Like there are two people who are very nicely indulging me about Zodiac. I'm not giving that up for
there's
anything.
there's no indulgence. Zodiac is a wonderful film. And again, I please watch Zodiac. If you I would suggest watching it at a time.
It's very, very similar to a movie we've done, another Jake Gyllenhaal crime movie that we did for the crime episode that I picked was Prisoners.
Yep.
Those two about the people approaching a case differently, trying to solve a thing on their own terms and figuring it out on their time and their terms. Prisoners is a great film.
Also very much oh, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing.
Very much speaks to Jake Gyllenhaal as just a phenomenal actor.
He's the best.
He really is and it's taken me a long time to understand that, but like now looking at his body of work and just looking at what he's been capable of, you're like, wow, you're you got something special here. Like you just have a range and, and a commitment.
If you haven't seen Nightcrawler,
oh yeah,
oh my god, Nightcrawler.
Oh, it's
by far my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal performance. I mean, the script is incredible too, but it's
my
wow.
It was my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal until I saw John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch, and that became. Let me tell you, when you see Jake Gyllenhaal on that program, it will really do some things to your mind. But yeah, so Gillian, you know, but we obviously we could keep this going forever and ever, and we obviously have to have you back, and Mike will come on, and you will come back, and it will be great. But talk. I do want to hear about this. So this thing that I mean, I want to hear about it because I'm involved in it. I'm in it.
Yeah. So there's we're gonna tease it a little. So Mike wrote this thing that we've done before, and so we get to work together, Nick, like officially in an official capacity, which I'm super excited about. So we Mike and I have teamed up with Mischief Management, who. This is I will make like an 8-hour podcast about how much I love Melissa Anelli at Mischief Management. She is they're the people who put on like Broadway Con and Con of Thrones, and they are all about fandoms and bringing people together, and they're just excellent people. So we've teamed up with Mischief to produce this really fun thing, and that's really all I'm going to say at this moment about what it is. But we are like everyone at Mischief. We've been working very closely with Melissa and Leah especially, and I can't believe it took me like I turned to Mike and I was like, I'm never going to not work with them on anything ever again. They're just like wonderful people. They are just so cool and so like down to business, but fun. Every time we have a meeting and I leave the meeting, I'm just like, I wasn't even feeling bad before the meeting, but I feel 100 times better all of a sudden. Like my mood is up. So we're gonna do this really, really cool thing. It's a radio play that Mike wrote, and we're gonna it's all about raising money for the Actors Fund, and we're just gonna give you something fun and nice for the holidays. And we're getting the band back together without saying too much. We're maybe a little bit of Sons of Liberty, and then some like fancy freestylers. I think that's enough of a tease. And also Nick Walker is gonna be there.
I will show up at some point and say some
Alex,
words.
I'm sorry. Alex, will you still listen to the radio play even though Nick Walker's
absolutely involved? Well, that's what the mute button's for.
Right. I'll let you know. I'll give you timestamps so you can mute it.
I'll watch it in waveform. I've gotten very used to what Nick's voice looks like in waveform. Yeah. I can identify his ums without listening to it to cut them out. I just know exactly how he speaks.
That's so annoying.
I'll just listen in waveform and
just cut it out.
Yeah.
Just mute it. Yep.
So we have like big announcements coming, but I'm thrilled, Nick, that you said yes. Like I was like, if we could get Nick Walker, that would be so amazing.
It was no, there was a no-brainer. No-brainer. Done.
Yeah. So by the time Mike is on your pod, I think you can probably talk about it a little bit more. But it's like everyone, our dream cast said yes. You all said yes, like right away, which is unbelievable. So I'm excited to get some of two bands back together to make one big band. It's gonna be great.
I love that. I love it. Well, Gillian, you are just nothing but a gem, and we are so thankful. Seriously, I mean
back
that.
Back at you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming in, and thank you
so much
for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. And if you ever want to talk about I'll find a way. Life finds a way. I will find a way to find a movie about the topic.
Absolutely. I mean, there are several other true crime movies to talk about. So like we could just do another go at this at some point. It could be fun.
Yeah.
But,
fake crime.
What if I was like, I only talk about Zodiac? I just only talk about Zodiac.
Then we talk about Zodiac again.
I only talk about Zodiac or like Columbo, which is not true crime at all, but Peter Falk is it's my favorite. It's my favorite show. Columbo is my favorite show.
I always wanted to watch the remake with Ving Rhames, but I didn't hear good things, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna leave that alone.
And there's this internet rumor, or like the internet really wants Mark Ruffalo to play Columbo, and if that happens, that's just like I'm done forever. If Mark Ruffalo ever plays Columbo, which he could flawlessly, that would end me.
Well, let me tell you, we're living in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro in a new Spider-Man.
Wait, tell me.
Oh,
really?
Jamie Foxx is going to be Electro in Spider-Man 3. Returning, and not even in the franchise that he originally starred in a different Spider-Man franchise as the same character.
Wow.
So anything can happen, kids.
Maybe Jake Gyllenhaal will come back.
Oh no, he is coming back because they're going to do the Sinister Six. It's going to be Jamie Foxx. It's going to they're going to get all of them because they got Keaton, Fox, Gyllenhaal. Who knows who's going to play Doc Ock? But it's going to be absolutely crazy.
Alfred Molina, man.
Yeah, bring him
back.
back.
Bring him back.
He's like what? Probably
He's
in his
so good.
70s now.
Doesn't
He can do
matter.
it.
Please bring him back.
It's Alfred Molina. He can do anything, just like John Carroll Lynch. He can
And
do
Brian
anything.
Cox,
Yes.
come
And
on.
Brian Cox. All
and
right,
Brian Cox.
Oh
Yeah,
my-
bring him in the X. Who did Stryker in X-Men?
Oh, it was what's his? Yeah, what was that? That was Brian Cox, wasn't it?
Stryker, Brian Cox. Yeah,
Yeah.
In X-Men 2.
Oh, look at that. Look
best.
at that. All right, guys. Well, thank you, everyone. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you very soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Little justice, little justice, little justice.